Apologies for my hair this entire video. I really, I want to do this and you'd think that I would put more effort into it, but I need to wash my hair and it just hasn't happened yet. So, whatever. Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining me. I am going to do my October wrap up today. This is the first video that I've ever done for BookTube for anything like this. And I'm just doing it because I want to try it out. So I'm doing my October TBR because I had a great month reading wise. And also I am recording this on election day. I'm off work today, so I had the time and I didn't want to watch CNN anymore, you know? So I'm going to jump right in because I read like 11 and a half books this past month. And I don't want this video to be like 45 minutes long. So I'm going to try to move along pretty quickly. And please, if you have read any of these books or have read books in this genre that you think I would like based on what I think about the books I read this month, absolutely, please talk to me about what you feel. Tell me your feelings. Tell me, you know, I love it. This is why I'm doing this, because I want to talk to more people about books and find more recommendations. So here we go. So the first book that I want to talk about is The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. So technically I actually read this book in like the last day or so of September, but I'm including it in my October because I really want to talk about it first of all, but it's so obviously a spooky season book, and this is an October wrap up, but it's also about spooky books. So I had to talk about this. First of all, this copy is incredible. I love it so much. I got it from Thrift Books, so it is a used copy, and like, can we get the sounds? Can we get the book ASMR? Love it. I don't know if that picked up because I'm recording this on my laptop. You gotta work with what you have, you know? So anyway, The Haunting of Hill House. I love it. It is now one of my favorite books. Like, I'd feel comfortable putting this in my top 10 favorite books. Couple things I want to say. First of all, if you don't like Gothic literature, this book is probably not for you. Specifically Gothic horror. It is a classic example of fantastic Gothic horror, in my opinion. And if that's not your cup of tea, I get it. And it's probably just one you want to skip. It is kind of slow sometimes. There aren't a lot of spooks. Like, you think you're picking up a horror novel. Remember, this is written in the 50s. It's not that scary, but also it's terrifying. I have a lot of feelings about this book, and I feel like I could make a whole video about Shirley Jackson in general. Another thing I want to say, I can't stand when people compare this book to the TV show, to the Netflix show. I love the Netflix show. It's one of my favorite shows of all time. I am obsessed with it. But they are not the same story even a little bit. And so it really bugs me when, what's she doing? It really bugs me when people say, oh, I thought that the show was so much better than the book. To me, that's like saying the Haunting of Hill House, the book, is better than Hunger Games Catching Fire, the movie. It's not the same story. I don't think they can be compared. So I'm really off on a tangent here. But if you like Gothic literature, if you just are curious to see like what this book, it's a short one, it's fun, it's a little spooky, and I absolutely loved it. I also would highly recommend other Shirley Jackson work. Maybe I will talk about her more later. Let's move on. I've talked about her enough. Okay. So that was the first book that I read this month, the end of last month. The next book, funnily enough, Stephen King, Salem's Lot. I say funnily enough because, hold please. Okay, after you get past the prologue in the book, part one begins with, you can't see it because it's backwards for you, but it begins with a quote, a passage from The Haunting of Hill House. I saw that and I was like, oh my goodness, I am destined to read books about spooky houses this month. Loved this. I'm a huge Stephen King fan. I also would like to make a whole video series or whatever about Stephen King. I have read probably about, I'm probably approaching the like 15 mark of how many Stephen King books I've read. This one falls pretty solidly in the middle for me. I didn't hate it at all. I thought it was a really fun read. I had a lot of fun reading this. It's very spooky, very Halloween-y. But it's also not like my top tier. It's no It. It's no Christine, okay? It is about a writer. That's partially what it's about. There's a lot going on. It is about a town in which there is a creepy house where something horrible happened. And now something horrible seems to be brewing again in this house. Very interesting, very fun, very spooky. Great. The next book that I read was Elevation by Stephen King. Well, first of all, I didn't mean to read two Stephen King books in a row. It just happened that way. What the heck? I was not expecting that at all. Okay, so I listened to this as an audiobook, first of all, and it was read by Stephen King. Loved it. I am still working on finding my groove with audiobooks because I find it difficult to pay attention to them sometimes, but there are certain genres and certain books that I absolutely love as audiobooks. So I listened to this one mostly just because I saw that it was read by Stephen King himself. Let me just say it's not scary. So if you have never read Stephen King because you don't like scary things, this might be the one for you because it's not scary, and I was expecting scary, you know. It is about a man who all of a sudden, strange things are happening to him, like health-wise. And he consults his friend to see what's going on. In the meantime, while this is all going on with his health, he is befriending his neighbors who are a lesbian couple who own a new restaurant in this town. And this town is a very conservative town. And so there's some of that in there. It's more about the social issues and about friendship and love than it is about like any weirdness with his health, although that definitely plays a role. I sobbed. I was cleaning when I was finishing this audiobook, and I was like trying to hang up my clothes. I was like, it's beautiful. I absolutely have nothing but good things to say about Elevation. And so unexpected because like you feel like you know what you're getting when you pick up a Stephen King. No, weird, crazy. It's time for a coffee break. Okay. Next, I'm looking at my list. Next was Then She Was Gone by Jewell. Loved it. I love her. She is a great writer. It's about a young teenage girl who goes missing. So the book kind of goes back and forth between the time like right when she's going missing and then like 10 years-ish later. And it's mostly told from the point of view of her mother, but there is also some jumping narration in that. And so we get some various viewpoints. I absolutely love her books. This will definitely not be the last one of hers that I read. I saw that she has a new one out. I can't remember the name of it at all, even a little bit. I don't know, but I want to read that. I want to read her other books because I really, really like the kind of thriller that she writes. Okay, Lock Every Door. That was next. There's a reason why everyone's talking about this book. This book is fun. This is about a young woman who lives in New York City. She's pretty down on her luck, so she takes a job as an apartment sitter. She takes this job just to kind of like be there while someone is away, just a temporary couple months, but weird things start happening. And I'm not going to say anything more than that because it gets wild, like absolutely wild. Highly recommend it. I will say the beginning is a little slow, like until about halfway through, like it's good writing and I was captivated, but I wasn't like, wow, you know, until really about 3/4 of the way through probably, but there's enough going on that you're bought in. So, I would highly recommend this. I promise I'm going to get to some books that I don't recommend. I feel like I'm highly recommending every book. Actually, the next one. Let's move on to that. The Wife Between Us. Oh my goodness. I really tried. I tried really hard to like this book. I didn't. I hated it. The problem with this book was I couldn't ever get past the beginning, which was just really annoying to me and really boring. And then when things finally started picking up and you like saw the twists, it was like, I have no feelings about these characters, particularly the one main character who pretty much, you know, if you've read it or if you plan to read it, you'll know. I know a lot of other people like this book. Funnily enough, I was in Barnes & Noble recently, actually right after I had finished this book. It was literally like the next day. And I just ran in really quick. And I saw that book sitting there and my boyfriend was with me and I pointed at it and said, I just finished that and I hated it. And this lady was walking past and she heard me and she was like, oh, really? I loved it. And then I felt bad because I was like hating on this book that she had liked, which is fine. We all have different opinions, but I like was backtracking. I was like, oh, I couldn't get it. I'm sorry. It wasn't for me. Here's what I have to say about it. If you liked this book or if you didn't like this book, but kind of liked some of the twists, The Last Mrs. Parrish by, I don't remember who writes it, to me is a better book about this subject. One thing I do want to say though about this book, I think the subjects that it talks about are important. Like, I think it's important to talk about the ways in which people can be abusive and that it's not always the same patterns and that those patterns are different and like how people escape abusive marriages and abusive, that kind of thing. I'm giving a little bit away, sorry. But it just was, I couldn't do it. Sorry. The Last Mrs. Parrish, I recommend more than this one. Read that years ago, but it sticks with me to this day. Okay, the next book, The Whisper Man by Alex North. Okay, I loved this. I'm about to say something and I mean it in the best possible way. This reminded me of a Criminal Minds episode, right? So if you've read this, I would like to know if you feel the same way. Like, do you see what I'm saying? It's about a serial killer. You know, you get some of the procedural point of view because when the police person is narrating, a couple of them, so you get that. There's a lot of emotion. There's a lot of psychology. There's a lot of like family relationships. I really enjoyed it. It was a fun, quick read for me. I particularly liked a lot the different ways that father-son relationships are portrayed, and how that impacts people. So I won't say anything more than that because I don't want to spoil anything. However, question. For people who have read this book or have read his other book, I have a question for you. So there's another book, and I think it's new. I think this is the one he came out with like a year or something ago. I think this one came out last year. Anyway, and then there's one that it's called like The Shadows or something. That might not be what it's called. I might be completely wrong. I should have looked this up. But the handprint is like this way on it, and it's black with a white handprint, I think. And then there's like some people, and it looks like very similar to the cover of this. And I'm confused. Are they related? Do they happen in the same universe? Is it a series? Or are they just completely unrelated and he just likes his books to kind of look uniform? I don't know. And I would love some input. I also would love input if you've read this book and the other one or the other. What did you think? Should I read the next one? Or not the next one, but his new one? I probably will. But I think I heard some people saying that they liked this one better than the new one. Or maybe the new one better than this one. Obviously, I don't know very much about that. So I would really appreciate some input on that. Okay. We're getting there, guys. We're getting there. There's my Pittsburgh Yinzer accent. Okay. Bossypants, Tina Fey. That was my next book. I completely out of left field, right? I was like, oh, scary. And then Bossypants by Tina Fey. It just popped up on my Libby. I listened to this as an audiobook narrated by Tina Fey. Loved it. I really did. Well, yeah, I loved it. First of all, I love Tina Fey, and I thought that she did great with the audiobook. And I've seen other people say, if you're going to read this book, listen to the audiobook because it's great. And they're right. It is great. The next book I read, I don't have here, but I do own. It is at my boyfriend's house. It's A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. You know, you pick up a book thinking it's going to be spooky, like Elevation by Stephen King, and then you just cry. It's beautiful. I wish that I had it here because I would love to show some of some of the illustrations for people who have never seen it or don't own the book. It's just gorgeous. The illustrations are beautiful. It looks like it's almost like a children's book. I highly recommend, if you can find a copy of it, buy it, because it's a book that if you like that kind of thing, and like kind of spooky things like that, I am glad that I own it. I found it on sale at Barnes & Noble. Really sad though. Oh my goodness. It is about a boy who suddenly starts getting visited by a monster in the middle of the night. I don't want to give too much away because it's not a very long book, but it's pretty powerful. But at the same time that this is happening, his mother is sick. She has cancer, and he's experiencing some problems at school. So that's all I'm going to say, just because I really feel like this was such an experience. I read it in one sitting. It's very short, and there's a lot of pages where it's just a full spread of illustrations. So a great read. It doesn't have to happen at Halloween because it's not actually that scary. It's really more emotional than anything. But I really, really enjoyed it. Okay, next. 9 Perfect Strangers, Liane Moriarty. Okay. So I really like her. I really do. I have read Big Little Lies. I have read The Husband's Secret. I have read... Did I read any other of hers? Well, anyway, I loved those two. They're good books. They're really good. And I was like, oh, this one's going to be good too. So here's the thing. I started this as an audiobook like earlier in the month, like a while ago. And I hated it. I couldn't get into it. I don't know if I just like, it wasn't in the vibe for me, whatever. I don't know. It wasn't in the vibe for me. What does that even mean? Anyway, I didn't like it. And so I quit, but I was already like, I don't know, maybe like 30% of the way through. And I didn't want to just not finish it just because I wasn't really enjoying the audiobook experience. So I got the ebook, and I finished it that way. And it just never got better for me. I really didn't like it. I didn't hate it as much as I hated The Wife Between Us, which I hated. But 9 Perfect Strangers was a letdown for me. It was boring, and there wasn't a lot going on. And even when things were happening, I was like, this is dumb. So I'm sorry to be so mean about this book, but I really didn't like it. And I'm going to keep reading her books because I think she's a great writer, even in parts where I was like, meh. Her writing is good. And I love Big Little Lies, of course, and The Husband's Secret is really good as well. So I'm going to keep reading her books. I'm not giving up on her, even though she let me down a little with this one. Sorry. Okay. Only 2 more books. Only 2 more. Okay, here we go. The next one. I mean, of course it was going to happen. Of course I was going to read this. No shock here. This is the most popular book on the internet right now, I think. Like, I feel comfortable making that guess. Every single person is reading it, and there's a reason why. So I started it, and I was like, I don't get it. I don't get the hype. I don't get it. It is absolutely Gothic literature, though. And I know I just went on a tangent in the beginning of the video about how much I love Gothic literature. And part of Gothic literature is that they often start pretty slow. But boy, this one does start slow. There is not a lot going on. And there are entire chapters where I'm like, nothing happened. She just walked around again. But then, no, it comes back around. It turns from being like a very slow moving, slow paced, just kind of like drama to like, what on earth? This book is about our main character, Naomi. She lives in Mexico City, loves to party. She's a young socialite, and her cousin has recently married and moved away to this old creepy house. And so she and her father, Naomi and her father, get a letter from her cousin saying that things are bad and that she needs help. She needs to get out. Bad things are happening. So her father, Naomi's father, sends her to this house to check on her cousin and make sure that she's okay. And so really, like, half of the book is just Naomi, like, fighting to get her sister some care from her creepy husband and his creepy family and racist family. This is set in Mexico in the 1950s, I think. So, you know, and her this family that her cousin married into is white. So here's the thing. It is a slow start. What keeps you there, and this is how I'm going to sell you for the slow part, Naomi. She is awesome. She is like, what a fantastic protagonist. And so that really holds you for even the moments where it doesn't seem like a lot is happening. And then everything happens. I'm not going to say anything at all about what happens. They're in this house. They're experiencing some weird things, and this family that she's there with is weird. And it progressively keeps getting weirder. It is scary. So I got this from the library and it has this like horror tab on it. I was like, it's not gonna be that scary. How could it be that scary? It's actually kind of scary. And if this were a movie, if they made a movie and like kept everything in this book and put it exactly on TV, it would get an R rating. It is kind of scary. Also, a quick aside, if you are bothered at all, triggered in any way by discussion of and some explanation of sexual assault and sexual harassment, there is a tiny bit of that in this book. It's not a lot. It's not explicitly, there is some moments where it's definitely happening and you know that it's happening, but it's not overly explicit. Like, it's not like reading like a Stephen King, where it's like pages and pages of horribleness sometimes. But if you are triggered by that kind of thing, FYI. If you feel like you can get through just brief mentions of it, sometimes like, something's happening and it's not great, then I couldn't recommend this more. This, I think, probably was my favorite book that I read this month. The Haunting of Hill House and Lock Every Door are really up there as well, too. But this one was really fun. So there is a reason why it is the most popular book on the internet right now. Find it, get your hands on a copy, read it. Okay, last book, Paranoid by Lisa Jackson. This was a book completely out of left field for me. I wasn't planning to read this book. My boyfriend's mother lent me this. She had read it and she knows that I like thrillers, and so she lent it to me. And I really liked it. It was a fun read. Was it like, if we're comparing the last two books that I read this month, I mean, this is a fantastic book. This is fun, though. Not every book has to be like top tier best novel you ever read. This is definitely not the best novel I ever read, but it was a fun ride. I didn't quite know what was going to happen. I was a little let down by the end. I kind of felt like it was a little like, saw that coming. So this book is about, it is about a terrible accident that happened years prior when the main characters were in high school. This is not a spoiler alert. I'm just going to go ahead and say it like it says this on the back. Our main character, her half-brother, is shot and killed accidentally. And the main character, she's pretty sure that it was her own fault. So then we're fast forwarding like 20 years in the future. And suddenly some spooky things start to happen to the people who were there that night. And then there's some pretty good intrigue about, her relationship with her ex-husband and her kids, and some of the ways that all of this intertwines and comes together at the end. Again, the end was like meh for me, but it was absolutely a fun ride. So those are the books that I read. I really enjoyed doing this. I enjoyed talking about the books that I read because I read them and I want to share my thoughts. I want to hear what other people think. So if you have read any of these books, if you have read any of the books that I talked about, or even any of the authors that I talked about, please tell me. I am doing this because I want to talk about the books that I've read, but also because I want to talk to people in the book community. And I think that the booktube community on YouTube is awesome. And I want to be a part of that community in my own little way. And if that means that 2 people watch this and like one person comments, I liked that book too, great. That is awesome. If nobody watches this, at least I got to talk to myself, well, talk to my camera, which is really just myself. So if you enjoyed this, please share it with your other booktube community friends, because I would love to have some conversations about these books. So Again, thank you so much. I've said that 15 times already, but I want to say it again because if someone has watched this video, that is thrilling to me. Someone other than like myself and my mom. So thank you. I will be back hopefully soon with my November TBR or November wrap up if I don't get the TBR done.